as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Darkin. Welcome to the space where all automotive comes together to learn, to share, and most importantly, we are here to execute. Thanks for choosing to be here on this Wednesday, January 21st, frigid day across much of the country. Coming up today, the problem of catalytic converter theft and what NADA is doing about it. We'll talk AI search, right to repair, and why don't we throw in a little right to sell? Speaking of which, we'll bring up the Scout Motors debate for good measure. But first, let's hit today's industry headlines. First up today, speaking of OpenAI, they've announced that it's preparing to introduce paid advertising inside ChatGPT. That's going to be fun. Creating a new channel for brands, including automakers and dealers, to reach shoppers. I think there'll be a race to get involved in that. However, according to OpenAI, the ads won't change how ChatGPT answers questions. They'll simply appear in clearly labeled boxes below responses matched to the topic of the conversation rather than embedded into the answer itself. OpenAI also says it will not sell user data or share conversation content with advertisers. Interesting. And users will be able to opt out of ad personalization without losing other features, similar to some other social media platforms. The initial rollout will be a test in the US, starting with ChatGPT's free subscription tier. What's the big picture here? Well, the key ingredient with OpenAI will be trust. If users suspect that AI is steering them towards paid placements instead of real answers, the entire format could be devalued. However, for dealers who get in early, this could be a rare chance to show up at the exact moments shoppers are asking high-intent questions, and that's pretty powerful. We here at the Car Dealership Guy will follow this evolution closely and bring more of this content along with how-tos in coming episodes, because I know this is going to be a topic I'm super interested in my CO role here at the Ziegler Auto Group. Next up today, auto insurance rate increases are finally cooling off after years of double-digit growth. Average rates are expected to rise just 1% nationwide in 2026. That's the smallest increase since 22, according to Value Penguin. More than half of all U.S. states are expected to see insurance costs fall, led by places like Iowa, Minnesota, Arkansas, Missouri, and Illinois. But New Jersey, well, it's a clear outlier, with rates projected to jump more than 10%, followed by Nevada, California, New York, and D.C., all in the 5 to 6% range. Essentially, auto insurance is still a real affordability wildcard, and even modest premium hikes can derail deals. Although this deceleration could signal a more favorable market cycle is on the way. Next up today, let's turn to President Trump, who has escalated his Greenland push by threatening new tariffs on key European allies, tying trade penalties directly to whether they interfere with U.S. efforts to bring Greenland under American control. The proposal would slap an additional 10% tariff on countries including Germany, France, Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands by February 1st, rising to 25% by June if no deal is reached by then. And that's on top of tariffs already in place. Markets reacted quickly after the announcement yesterday. Shares of Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Stellantis all slid, showing how exposed European automakers remain to U.S. trade policy shifts. But President Trump, well, he's not backing down. Speaking today at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, he said he would not use military force to persuade and pursue Greenland, but made no such retreat on tariffs, reinforcing that trade pressure remains his primary lever. Last up today, used vehicle sales surprised in December, climbing 1.34 million units. That's up 3% year over year and 2% from November, during a month typically known for slowing down, according to Cox Automotive. That late year strength capped off a better than expected 2025 for used cars, helped by loosening auto loan access and the growing affordability gap between new and used vehicles. Used inventory levels are higher but still controlled. Dealers started January with about 2.2 million used vehicles on lots, 5% more than a year ago, while days supply sat at 49, essentially flat year over year and tight by historical standards. Looking ahead, economic pressure and constrained supply are expected to weigh on used sales as 2026 progresses. That said, there's a near-term bright spot. Cox expects Q1 to benefit from larger than expected tax refunds this year. Much of automotive is waiting for tax refund season and the sales that come from that. And with that, that's our wrap on today's industry headlines. Yuli, welcome back. We got an action-packed show. All right.
Yes.
Monday, I came to you from the hull of a boat, thanks to Starlink. Today, I've got a little bit of a different background. And Friday, I'll be back to the normal. But it's proof that no matter where we are, the news doesn't stop. The conversations in automotive, Yuli, do not stop. And today, we've got one of the coolest conversations, I think, in all of automotive as we talk about the Part Act, which we're going to learn a little bit about what that is, what the cost is ultimately to dealers, to consumers, to everybody else. What'd you think of the Chat GPT convo there? Like,
I think
as soon as you
hit the nail on the head. This is going to be that cool inflection point, right? Like, get in there. This could be super, super interesting. I've always thought about how does a dealer get in there organically to get served up. So now, if Chat GPT or OpenAI is able to monetize that, it's going to be very interesting.
Every room I've been in, whether with our leadership group, whether with our GMs, with other dealers, everybody's like, okay, Google, that's interesting. We've all kind of figured out how to show up in Google search and how to get digital leads that way. What makes less sense is OpenAI, and people value OpenAI search more than Google search. I would say more than most searches, because it pairs back your own personality to the information you're requesting. And this ads thing just adds a whole different layer. So maybe we can ask some of our guests about it today a little bit. But let's start up with the Part Act. So Charlie, Senior Manager, Legislative Affairs at NADA, and Greg York, President, CEO of Vann York Auto Group. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to be here.
Charlie, I gave it my best shot. Is it Dyjak? Jack?
You're pretty close. It's Dyjak. It's a tough one, I know.
All right. And Greg, I got you, man. Greg York, welcome. Welcome to you both. So, all right, first off, Charlie, would you tell us a little bit about what is the Part Act and why do we care about catalytic converter theft? What is the Part Act, Charlie?
Yeah, so the Part Act addresses catalytic converter theft at the federal level. Right now, there's a couple state laws on the books because, theft skyrocketed during the pandemic. And has continued since. We believe that there's a need for a federal framework because a lot of these thefts, these guys are transporting them across state lines, right? There was a giant ring in northern Jersey that was getting shipments from Oklahoma, California, so not even neighboring states, right? So we need a federal framework to sort of blanket the nation and protect consumers and protect our guys too, right?
And you said the bill is currently being considered both at the House and at the Senate. And what does the timeline look like for passing it before we talk about the specific components of that? Actually, you know what? Before we go there, though, Greg, what is the cost of catalytic converter theft? Like in our auto group, as the price of vehicles have gone sky high, we're seeing more catalytic converter theft. We've actually had employees' vehicles had the catalytic converters cut out of it while they're sitting in an open parking lot, Greg. It's crazy.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having us on, and thanks for NADA for taking this on. It's an important. It's not the sexiest issue, but it's an important issue, and it's an expensive issue, not just for dealers but for the consumer. It depends on how good the thief is. Are they good at? Can they just cut off the catalytic converter and cost $2,500 or up to $4,000, or do they completely destroy the exhaust system and get the manifold and get to that? And then you're up to $5,000. So. It is very expensive. I think any dealer will say they've had in the past year probably had catalytic converters stolen.
We've had it. Yeah,
we've had it. But here's the people don't understand. We'll have an instant. We'll have a group come in and steal 8 catalytic converters. 4 will be from your inventory, but the other 4 are customers' cars for service or employees, and those are the toughest ones. That's when it starts. That's when it starts costing the consumer money. That's when insurance starts going up. It's just a cascade of problems involved in this.
Why are thieves targeting catalytic converters? I've never understood. Like, what is it about a catalytic converter that makes it so appealing for somebody to sit under a car, cut it out, and run off with it?
Well, it's easy to get, and then the minerals and the core value and the resources in there are very, they can turn them into cash. I think Charlie can talked about that closer from a national standpoint. But that's the easy thing, easy access, and they can turn into cash without any kind of being tracked.
Charlie, is the market more liquid, and is that part of the problem with the current state of legal catalytic converter theft?
Yeah, so scrap facilities right now, record keeping is done on a state-by-state basis. So some states have got great laws in the books, others not so much. So it's easier to sell these things, right? And it's the precious metals that are included in catalytic converters that are really skyrocketing the price of these things, right? So it's platinum, palladium, rhodium. At one point, rhodium was touching $30,000 an ounce. So you're telling me 90 seconds of work, I can get about $200, $300 worth of precious metals under my arms? Sounds like a pretty great deal, right? So those are two main components. And then the third one I'd say is a lack of traceability, right? So these local law enforcement guys are pulling these thieves over with 10 of these things in the bed of their truck. They can't prove that one of these converters came from an affected vehicle down the street, so they don't have a case, so they have to let them go. So that's a big component too that just makes this stuff a little bit easier for the guys on the streets.
Is this part of the reason we want Greenland, by the way? So rare earth minerals, is this one of those rare earth minerals, or does this have nothing to do with Trump wanting Greenland?
Well, I don't know if Greenland has anything to do with catalytic converter.
All right. So give us in plain English, if the PART Act passed tomorrow, what would change first? Who would feel it most immediately? Because as I understand it, you want a VIN. You want to make these catalytic converters traceable. So as soon as that employee's catalytic converter is stolen off a vehicle, the police could immediately identify that it should have been on vehicle A because of basically a VIN, right?
Yeah, and so not necessarily a full VIN, right? So when the sponsors drafted this bill, they wanted to make it as easy for OEMs to comply with as possible, right? So a lot of OEMs out there right now, they have unique serial numbers on a catalytic converter. So as long as they can tie that unique ID back to a VIN, that's as good as a VIN, right? It still establishes that chain of custody, and they can trace that pretty easily. So that's the first part of the bill, is putting some sort of unique identifier on catalytic converters of new vehicles. The second part is a grant program. Dealers are specifically listed as entities that could receive funding to mark vehicles that are currently on the road. That way, these markings start to permeate into the fleet a little bit. That way, it's not just newer vehicles that have these markings. Thieves are smart. They'll hear about that. They'll just move to start hitting older vehicles, right? So you want to permeate that into the fleet a bit. Third, it increases scrap keeping requirements at the federal level. Like I said before, it's done at the state level, but this would just be a floor of what is necessary across the country. And then lastly, it increases federal penalties associated with theft. So you'd get up to 5 years for the trafficking of converters. Again, that's just a deterrent factor. Hopefully you guys hear that and say, you know what, feds are getting involved. I'm staying out of this.
Yeah. It's interesting because as you describe this, it is additional record keeping. It's additional oversight. Greg, I don't know if you've had this experience, but in some of the states we do business in, we have a hard time getting the cops to go after the stolen cars, let alone parts of the cars. Like giving federal oversight into the catalytic converter theft, who's going to enforce this, and what are the expectations from a police standpoint of it actually being recovered?
Well, I think like in our state, I'm in North Carolina, and we have passed state legislation which does not allow people to possess catalytic converters unless they're in the auto industry. So but still, they still are concerned because there's no way to trace it back to prove what car that came off of. So I think this is more, as Charlie's pointed out here, this is more of a deterrent. If the feds are involved and they know that the catalytic converters are getting marked and there is a way to trace it, I think it'll be a deterrent for people taking them off cars. That's our hope.
So, Greg, for you, where has this catalytic converter theft hit you the hardest? Is it you mentioned customer cars, service loaners, inventory? What kind of disruption to dealer operations does that look like day to day for you?
I think we look back this year, we've had 30 catalytic converters stolen. That's a light year for us this year. And so, half that's customers, half that's inventory. And I think our inventory or our own cars, that's an easy situation. It's when you have a customer's car who gets the catalytic converter stolen off. That car's down. We're trying to track down parts. We're trying to make sure we get it repaired. So it complicates a lot of things, and it complicates our relationship with that customer.
Yeah. Sure. So, Charlie, NADA has pointed out these thefts can turn violent quickly and pull law enforcement away from other priorities. I mentioned sometimes it's tough for us to get vehicles back, let alone the catalytic converters. How does this law specifically help with, let's get these parts back, let's prevent the theft, but also keeping law enforcement focused on the things they need to?
Well, it makes prosecuting these cases a lot easier for local enforcement, right?
Yeah, it's a
So
federal
just
offense.
giving them that traceable element. I mean, this could turn a case that usually would take them, a couple of days into maybe just a couple hours, right? Because now all they have to do is punch in this serial number into whatever database they have for this, find out exactly where the car came from, and there you go. Now they have the case. So this frees them up to address other local issues. And hopefully get some of these guys that are, turning violent as well, like you mentioned, off the street, these bad actors, right?
Yeah. You're getting a lot of comments online. Eager K online says 3 big things that are being stolen right now: catalytic converters, headlights, especially from Porsches, and I'm also seeing thieves steal tow hooks if it's left on the car. So, I mean, anything. I think the common element here in a lot of these thefts is anything that can easily be converted into cash quickly, thieves are willing to take a risk on. And catalytic converters, because of these minerals in there, are easier to turn into cash. And you're just trying to put up some blocks and obstacles that make it less easy, right?
Exactly. Theft, it's been around for millennia, right? We're not going to put an end to theft as a whole. We're just hoping to stomp down a bit on catalytic converter theft because that's especially prevalent over these past few years.
So it's interesting to our Daily Deal Live audience, dealers, GMs, other people within auto dealers. Have you seen a catalytic converter theft? Love to see it in the comments. I think most probably have. For those dealers, Charlie, that want to support the effort, want to get involved, want to help make sure that this goes from bill to law, what can we do today, January 2026, to help you in your efforts?
Yeah, so I mean, it's as simple as contacting your members of Congress, right? So you're a member of the House, and then your 2 senators, and NADA is always happy to make those connections. If you reach out to us, we're happy to put you in touch with those folks. But at the end of the day, they want to hear from you guys. I can talk to their offices till I'm blue in the face, but once they hear from guys like Greg, who are on the ground, who have seen it firsthand, they actually listen. So we're always happy to put you guys in touch with those folks. It's gained some good traction on the Hill. We had a hearing last week in which 3 different members touched on the bill, all supportive, Democrats and Republican. So it got momentum behind it, and we're hoping to get it across the finish line this year.
By the way, in today's political environment, how unusual is it to get bipartisan support for anything? Like, that's actually pretty cool. How did you achieve that? Were you able to bring both sides of the aisle together in support and concept of a bill like this, preventing catalytic converter theft?
It's one of those things that it almost sells itself. You walk into the office and you say, hey, are you against catalytic converter theft? And about 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, they're going to say yes. So it's an easy sell. And there's a lot of bipartisan bills out there. They just don't get as much limelight as they should.
So, Greg, you've spent a lot of time dealing with this type of theft at all levels, employee, customer, and your own inventory. For those dealers watching today, even before this bill passes, we obviously want it to pass. Props to NADA for your efforts to make this happen and turn this into law. Is there 2 or 3 steps you could recommend to help protect your inventory, your customer vehicle, and your employee's vehicle against catalytic theft today, January 2026, Greg?
Well, right now we have a big fleet order sitting here. We had to hire someone to watch that fleet order because they're big fleet trucks that it's so easy to get the catalytic converters out. So one of the things we have to do in one of our stores, because got hit twice, was start pulling customer cars inside. There's not a whole lot you can do to prevent this. Cameras are always a great idea, except many times you just end up getting a video of somebody stealing a catalytic converter and watch them do it. I don't think there's right now there's not a lot of teeth in bills to try to legislate or try to arrest people and get them prosecuted. So there's not a lot that you can do except maybe the cameras, and if it gets severe enough, you have to start pulling things inside for your customers' cars.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the tips, the suggestion for our audience. Hey, Charlie and Greg, as promised, as we wrap up today, one question. So we had the ATAE of Virginia Auto Dealers Association on. We teased it in the intro. Another big legislative topic today in automotive, in franchise circles particularly, is Volkswagen's inroad into Scout. They got approval in the state of Colorado to sell direct to consumer. And is that a big deal, a no deal? What's your take on it? What should dealers be doing when they think about Scout today?
This is one of those things that all my coworkers out in Tyson's are working on. I know we got, some fantastic folks out there on the IR team, and our fearless leader, Mike Stanton, and I'm sure they'd be happy to opine on this a little more than I ever could.
You're passing, Greg. Any thoughts on it? Yeah,
the best system for consumer and for factories and for dealers is the dealer model. It works the best. It's working for you. It's worked for decades. It's the best for consumers. It's just the best way to market and sell vehicles. I am a major supporter of the franchise system, so I will leave it at that.
All right, very good. Dealers should be involved in that. I'm going to give you both. Charlie, I know there's a different department that's handling that right now, but we had Don Hall on. Nobody's more passionate than him about this one topic. And he actually said on the show, he said, some dealers think that they may not be impacted because they're not a Volkswagen dealer. What starts in one state eventually spreads in another. And that's why the legislative efforts of bodies like NADA and others are so important, because you're representing the entire dealer body nationwide. And you're able to go after this and have conversations that need to be had. I do believe this franchised auto system that we have in the U.S. is unique in all the world, and it provides the consumer a competitive advantage unlike anywhere else. So, and we'll leave right to repair to our third guest, unless, Charlie, you got anything you want to add on that?
It's another one of those issues we're working on constantly in this office, and I'm excited to hear Josh talk about it a little bit further too.
Charlie, what's one thing most people don't know about being involved in legislative affairs in Washington, D.C. at NADA? I think you got the coolest job. Greg, you and I are in we both work in the car business. Yeah. Charlie, you're there on Capitol Hill. What a cool gig you've got, right? What's something that would surprise most of our audience about what you do every day?
You know what? I always say it's not too different from what our members are doing, really. It's a people business. And instead of selling cars, we're just selling our members ideas and making sure everything's going all right with them, right? With a membership like ours, it's pretty easy to do. So it's not too different from what a lot of your members or listeners are actually doing on the day-to-day. Just different venue. That's all.
Well, Senior Manager Legislative Affairs at NADA, Charlie Jack, we appreciate you being on. And Greg York, President and CEO of Vann York Auto Group, North Carolina based. Thanks for joining the show today, sharing your perspectives and creating awareness around this topic. Thank you both.
Thanks, Sam.
Yuli, I don't want my catalytic converter stolen, and it's happening. It's a big deal, and we see it all across automotive right now. I love that there are dealers and that there are associations like NADA that are combining forces to help dealers win in this. So.
Yeah, my 2 cents also on that would be don't park your vehicles near any tree lines. That's something huge.
Why a tree line?
Because I've had in my experience, vehicles that have had their cats stolen, and they've been customer cars, they've been inventory, but anything near the tree line, if a bad actor, we'll call them, can walk through the woods and sneak up and crawl underneath and cut out. It doesn't matter what camera system you have. When you go and start up that car the next day, all of a sudden your Honda Odyssey sounds like a race car, and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk Impel for a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Impel. Impel Sales AI is the perfect tag team for your sales staff, handling lead qualification responses and appointment scheduling around the clock, so your reps step in only when it's time to close. We appreciate Impel sponsoring today's comments, supporting today's content, including this cool conversation on the PART Act. If you want to learn more, you can scan the QR code there at the Ziegler Auto Group. We actually have several stores that use Impel through CDKs, CRM, e-leads, and it's been a very cool and efficient, effective tool. So props to Impel for supporting today's content and for sponsoring the show. So thank you, Impel. All right, next up today, let's go from part theft. Let's talk data. It's fascinating. We talked with our next guest in the green room, And, when you sit and you think about a car, how much data gets collected in the car, we all know that NPI, non-public information, data is a burden. It's huge advantage if you can collect it, you can aggregate it, and you can use it effectively. But to anyone that collects it, knowingly or not, it also creates some liability. And our next guest up is here to talk about that. Sherryl Nens, SVP, Head of U.S. Dealer Sales at Privacy for Cars. Sherryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sherryl, welcome. We're going to start with our signature question, how's biz and Privacy for Cars? But as you're letting us know how things are going, tell us a little bit about yourself and what your company is doing for the automotive industry.
Yeah, well, thank you. Really, I got started in automotive at a very young age. I think from the garage. My 13th year birthday party, I got a oil wrench from my dad and had my own creeper since I was 7.
Nice.
And somehow that translated into a career as out of high school. He had a couple of guys that he knew, and I went to work at Jiffy Lube and became service manager there all through college. And then I had a professor that encouraged me to interview with Ford Motor Company. And so I spent most of my career there calling on dealers all over the West Coast. And then I launched 2 vehicles. My husband likes to call me the small car killer, the Ford Fiesta and the Ford EcoSport, but I don't think that was just me. And from there, I joined Comply Auto the last 4 years, where I really became interested in consumer privacy and then how dealers comply with that. I think dealers have so much that they have to worry about, including catalytic converters. But what does it do with consumer privacy? And I think an area where it's really often overlooked is on your car lot. Dealers are doing a great job about knowing that they have to do cybersecurity or their phishing tests or, protecting customer information inside the dealership. But what about consumer information that's right there in their dealer lots? And is there even an opportunity for revenue to help protect that information? So that's what Privacy for Cars is really helping dealers streamline in a very accountable way to delete customer data.
Mm-hmm. And
Sherryl, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you rent a car at an airport, do you connect to the Bluetooth in that rental car and connect your phone and do all the contacts and all that stuff based on what you know in the world?
Yeah. I do.
Okay.
Know
All right.
about privacy, but I also had a sister that worked for the federal government. So I also know, I don't know if there is privacy, but that is something that you have to think about. We heard a story recently about a woman who went to a rental car and she did connect her car and didn't delete it.
Yeah.
And I know I'm very good about deleting it, but I know there's also times that I'm late to my flight and I haven't done it.
You forget.
And
Yeah.
there was a bad actor that was able to get in, see her call log, use all those phone numbers to be like a scammer and call her parents and contacts and say that she needed money. And fortunately, they figured out what it was and where it came from. But I mean, it's that easy.
Yeah.
Well, I want to paint a different picture because, I have personal experience with your company and my organizations, but we talk often about protecting consumer, privacy laws in the showroom, like you just said, paperwork, things like that. Nothing can be out. We have, triple security checks on our computers.
Everybody has shredders now, right?
Exactly. But why is no one thinking about the fact that someone can buy a pre-owned vehicle, get into it, click home on the nav, drive to someone else's home, and use the garage door opener to get into someone's house? This is a pretty big deal. So I guess if you could bring to light, how does your company solve for that? How does that help dealers like us?
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. Like, think of all that information out there, and hopefully we don't all have stories. I'd like to see what your listeners, if they, tune in and mention stories. I had my own friend from high school when I posted that I came to work for Privacy for Cars. He mentioned that they bought an EV, a recent EV, and it was a pre-owned, and it had the customer's information in there. So not even from super scary privacy or even security aspect, but what about the consumer experience that you get into a new pre-owned car? We all want it to feel as new as possible, and you have other people's data on it. I mean, it's kind of like moving into a new house and have someone else's trash there. And so that's what Privacy for Cars does, is it really helps dealers by every VIN. I mean, there's no master control alt delete on cars. I mean, do you know how to clear every car everywhere and do it right every single time? And I think it really starts in the reconditioning department, but I think there's other opportunities for everyone to get involved. And is there a little revenue? Like in New Jersey, they have the new state vehicle data clearing law, and you can charge for a little revenue for that. But further than that, I think it's just look back at like electronics and consumer products that we use. I mean, I have an Apple 15 right now. I need to go in and get the 17. But when I trade this in, I would never expect them not to show me how to clear data. And so I think that's where the perception is to the consumer. And other retailers are doing a very nice job of that with like reconditioned products. And that's where we have to get to in the car dealer is. So I think consumers are really expecting us to do it. And that builds that consumer trust for your dealership.
For sure. And walk us through from the dealer level, where does your technology fit in? You know, for someone that doesn't know about privacy for cars, where does your technology fit into the deal flow? You know, selling the car, trading, I guess, starting at trading the car, reconditioning the car, putting it up for sale, and then ultimately selling it to its new owner.
Yeah. Well, consumer trust should live in all departments, but it's very easy. It's just an app. So we can start with at the trade-in process. This is something your sales team can do. It's an app. Everyone can do it with their own phone. And while the customer is, talking with F&I, hey, I went out and cleared your data, and then I have a certificate to prove it. So then it can live in the deal jacket. So it's traceable and trackable. But then in, reconditioning and prep, this is going to be like a checklist in your reconditioning department. And now you're not having your team members try to figure out how to do this. You may know like the manufacturer you have and the most recent, but do you know all of them? I mean, there's thousands of VINs, and it really differentiates between VIN number with the trend type of what infotainment system they have in there. So in less than a minute, your team can figure out how to go in and do that and clear that car and then prove that it was done and it's trackable. So it mitigates risk. It, really helps with consumer trust, improves the CSI. And then if there's even a revenue piece for it. But then don't forget your service and fixed ops for your loaners. Like we mentioned, if you have your own rental cars.
Mm-hmm. So if a dealer's asking, where's my real risk here? Where does that risk show up first? Legal exposure, customer trust, brand reputation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be the big scary, like a lawyer is going to knock on you. I think everything starts with consumer trust. Most consumers are expecting this, and yet 4 out of 5 cars still have customer data on this. And I don't think like consumers know how to articulate that. So it starts with the consumer, and you're doing what's right for them. So it's really improving consumer trust, your brand reputation. Can you imagine if something happened? We had a story where a dealer, took in a trade and they didn't get the title or the spare key. They only got one key. And the customer that bought the new pre-owned car, they just got frustrated and they went in the navigation, went to that customer's previous owner's home, knocked on the door and asked for the title and the key. So just one incident, can snowball and really, that's a detriment to your brand reputation. And then it's even to be a differentiator for your trade acquisitions. Come to me, I take care of your data the right way.
So Sherryl, a question online, DNC says, wonder if the dealer has any liability, financial or otherwise. Like, are there cases where dealers have been held responsible in court for not clearing the data, not having it taken care of? So he says, wonder if the dealer has any liability if they don't clear out the data and a consumer experiences a fraud. What does that look like in your experience, Sherryl?
Yeah, so that's an area that's definitely like growing, and we're trying to see what the precedence is. But under the FTC safeguards rule, there is a lot about, NPI, non-public information. Now, it's specific originally to financial information. So I would argue, depending on some of these, EVs that you have to connect your credit card to charge, that has an aspect. But then the FTC's come back in a lot of cases and said like geolocation data is protected or can count as like part of a data breach. And I don't know about you, but geolocation, like where have you been? It shows where your kids are, your doctors, what church you go to. So that's a lot of confidential information in your vehicle.
New Jersey's taking this pretty seriously. I'm not up to snuff with the rest of the states on how they're doing it, but I know in New Jersey, we're required to have a document and have the customer sign off on the fact that, either they have to opt out and take it on themselves, or they give the permission to the dealership to wipe that that information for them, and we are able to charge them, a very small, nominal but steady, consistent fee to do so.
Yes. And what is a nominal fee? I'm not going to say what it is, but $20, $50, $100 for, 1 minute of work. But then think of like what it also does for that trust building and like having that customer come back. And other states are looking at it, but then not to forget about the states. 19 states have consumer privacy rights. And so a lot of that data could fall under that. I mean, 2-3 years ago, we had 2 states that had data privacy rights laws. So this is really where I think it's a growing aspect, and consumers are going to be concerned about and come to dealers asking for it.
Now, I don't want to reveal here because I know the answer, but this is obviously a very important thing for the consumer. Does your company do something different to, let the public know that, hey, I'm treating your cars better than anyone else. Your trade-ins are safe with me. Your private data is safe with me.
Yeah, we do. We have an entire consumer site. And so we let anyone, even dealers, anyone can have a free vehicle data privacy report. So you plug in your VIN and it shows what kinds of information your car is collecting. So first of all, you're knowing what is being done. And then second, any consumer can go on and we show them how to do it. Hopefully, a lot of them still, they have the tools in their hand and they don't do it. Like, I bet I can figure out how to clear my Apple, but it's easier to do it at the store. And that's what customers are going to do. But yes, we have a lot of consumer tools. We're also big advocates. I think this is an area where, there's real repercussions like domestic violence. We've heard like some women have tried to get away and then their husband was able to track them afterwards. So there's a huge safety aspect to this. And we help support consumers in that way for free as well.
So for dealers that are trying to modernize their operations, how does treating data deletion as a formal process change the conversations with the customers?
Yeah, I think, just making it part of your process. I actually challenge you both because Sam, I know you have a few stores. Like, hey, go out first and audit. Like, go grab 4 cars pre-owned and see if you can find customer data left out there. And then that's really revealing. And then okay, let's start documenting the process and like putting it into like our reconditioning step. But then going further, how do we document that? How do we make it really objective where we know every VIN and that it's done properly and then prove that to our customer?
Why aren't, for franchise auto dealers, why aren't the OEMs just doing this? Why isn't there like some sort of a reset process as part of the CPO or are OEMs engaged in this? Are they thinking about it, or is it the franchise dealer that needs to be forward on this effort?
Well, it's the same thing like when we have a data breach and it's like some other customer or third party. Who is your customer? Like, who is collecting that information? And so really when it leaves the OEM lot and it becomes on yours, it's really the dealer's responsibility.
Yeah. It's interesting. Every time I get in a rental car, I have that thought every time because it'll offer to connect you up on Bluetooth and you can see the option to download your contacts and you see like 8 people on every rental car. I just think it's
clear them. I feel like I'm helping doing my part.
Yeah. No, I think, and I think you're right. Like this is an area where people just aren't quite thinking about it. Their Comply Auto kind of came into its own. I want to make the argument on the heels of the CDK outage, right? Because everybody, and maybe Wynn casinos and maybe some of the other outages that happened, people really were like, oh, we need to really tighten up our processes as it relates to data control on that outage. It was kind of the canary in the coal mine for everybody else.
Right.
What do you think will happen in this privacy space with customer vehicles that'll kind of be that same event for clearing data in used vehicles? Because to your point, there's not a lot of focus on it right now. Logically, you think about it and you're like, you know what? We probably should think about it. But getting money spent on the problem won't happen until probably a bigger event or liability is super clear cut. What do you think is, what do you foresee happening that kind of shakes the industry up and says, rental cars need to clear data, dealers need to clear data, people need to be responsible for this data that gets collected? Sherryl.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be through legislation or like a big incident like that. But I really encourage you, though, because whether it's a big incident or a little incident at your store, we had an episode of, a dealer told us about a loaner that they had. The porter thought, hey, this girl's kind of cute, went in and found her address, knocked on the door,
Oh, no.
said, hey, you want to go out? so the dealer got a call from an angry dad and a lawyer. And like, do you really want that to be the thing or legislation? So I just really encourage dealers like, hey, reactive can be very troublesome, headaches, and expensive. Proactive can be quiet, maybe generate you revenue. We have a lot of dealers doing it, or even help you with your trade acquisitions. We have Premier Auto Group uses us, and it's right on their homepage to show as a differentiator. Hey, come to us. We care about you, and we want you to trust us, and this is what we do.
So last couple of questions we go here. What type of revenue? So I do see a huge benefit in being an industry leader in this space to cleanse a consumer's vehicle, give them that peace of mind. You have your own peace of mind, not having to worry about one of those scenarios you just talked about happening. What, from a revenue standpoint, do you have dollars per unit that can be generated on average at some of these other groups that are doing this, that are engaged in it, and are making it part of their value proposition to their customer?
Yeah, we have a few dealers that do it, and they charge a reasonable fee. It's all different. Some dealers don't; they use it more as the trade acquisition. But let's say it's $100 on trade-ins. So we have a small fee. We're $500-600 a month, and then so to break even, you only have to sell 5 or 6 used cars to clear it. So if I charge $100 a month or $100 a vehicle, excuse me. And then maybe you spend, a service loaner. Hey, when we return the car, one of our fees is $15 to clear the data. And then in reconditioning, you have like reconditioning prep fees. This can be another fee that's on top of that. And so that's where the revenue is. And so it's, $4,500, $5,000 if you sell 100 cars.
So does the certificate of cleansing, does it have some sort of an insurance product that backs it up? Or it's a certificate based on the process that you put in place, I would assume, right, Sherryl?
Yes, it is. And it can also be like a Carfax report. So on your vehicle display page, you can use our badge, and then it's clickable where the consumer can see that has already been done and cleared and see that certificate. Very cool. And it can live in your Jill jackets as well. So it's trackable as well.
Sherryl Nens, SVP, head of U.S. dealer sales at Privacy for Cars. Thanks for joining the show to share really this topic that I think a lot of dealers aren't thinking about. It's a great opportunity to be a difference maker in the industry by protecting consumer data. By the way, if you want to see Sherryl at NADA, Privacy for Cars will be at NADA booth 6528N, so you can learn more. You can extend the conversation. I'm sure you'll get a lot of our audience just curious about more of this. And listen, I will always, when I see a rental car, I'll never sync it for that exact reason. So maybe if rental cars started using you and your thought process, maybe it would give everyone a little bit of peace of mind to go ahead and sync up to it. Because right now I just don't trust it. Right, Sherryl? So thanks for being on the show.
Your apps, like I have an app that can start my car. And when we turned in a new car recently, I forgot my sunglasses. I had the app. I went in, unlocked the door, got my sunglasses. I could have started the car. So there's a lot of liability there.
Sherryl, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Come by and see us at Bye-bye.
Right. Yuli, it's an interesting comment. Eager says, once you connect your Bluetooth to the car, even when you clear it, it's still there on the hard drive and can still be recovered if someone really wants to do it. Good food for thought. So if I accidentally connect to a rental car, I'll never upload my contacts for that reason, right? Like there are contacts in my phone that I don't want sitting in a rental car and then other people to have access to it. This issue of data privacy is fascinating. Eager K says data never disappears completely. The hard drive never forgets about it.
That's like an Ocean's 11 type scenario, right? Like if we know that you have $30 billion worth of jewels at your house, then we're going to sit there and hack your hard drive and see what Bluetooth connections you had. But for the average consumer, I think this is low hanging fruit. If you have some bad actor that gets into a car, they're going to do path of least resistance. But
all right, last up today, Josh Johnson, CEO of, by the way, the coolest auto group name in the world, Don Johnson Auto Group. Props to Miami Vice. But you're not in Miami. You're in Wisconsin, Josh. Welcome.
No, the weather's much different here.
Welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
So I just learned, I think it's cool as heck, 100-plus-year-old auto group up there in Wisconsin. You're just north of us, the Ziegler Auto Group in the Chicagoland in Michigan. So 100-plus years. That's quite an accomplishment. What brands do you have, Josh?
We represent GM, Ford, and Stellantis.
Okay.
GM, 5 locations in Northwest Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we'll ask the traditional question. Then I want to get into a couple industry topics before we talk EOS. So how's business this January 2026, Josh?
Business has been great. Mother Nature's gotten in the way a little. It's 20 degrees below zero. So that keeps the service departments hopping, keeps vehicles breaking, and consumers are consistently upgrading because of that. But very optimistic. I think it's going to be a great 26.
So of the three OEMs that you have, we'll put you on the spot and say, who's winning this January of 2026? Who are you most bullish with?
Well, I think GM's got a great go-to-market strategy right now. Incredible product. We're really excited about the new team at Stellantis, the reintroduction of the Cherokee going forward. I think that's going to be a game changer for them. And Ford is just steady moving ahead. So I think it's going to be a positive year with a solid SARS for all three.
Yeah. So in your marketplace, I would imagine mobile repair is a big deal. Ford put a ton of money in it. And with their recalls this past year, a lot of groups have capitalized on that. Do you do mobile repair at your Don Johnson Auto Group?
We have been doing mobile repair when it comes to recalls for Ford. It gets a little bit challenging at 20 degrees below zero. We're not doing a lot in driveways this time of year, but come the summer months or being able to service commercial facilities, we've been able to take full advantage of that. It's a great resource.
Okay. So you and your group have engaged in the EOS process. We definitely want to talk about that. But you also heard us speak with NADA about a couple topics that are big in automotive today. So Scout just got approval in the state of Colorado to sell direct to consumer. It concerns a lot of Volkswagen dealers. Big deal, not a big deal? What's your take?
Oh, it's a huge deal. Absolutely inexplicable why Colorado would approve this. Yeah, I think we can go back to 2024 Oliver Wyman study that took a look at every distribution model, manufacturer direct, agency model, franchise, and hands down, the franchise model provides the most value for the consumer. It allows us to provide bespoke services that best match consumers' needs with what manufacturers produce on a consistent basis. And we can help balance supply and demand that no other model does. So why a manufacturer would want to pursue it in the first place just doesn't make sense to me. And the fact that Colorado has allowed this to go forward is just inexcusable. Thankfully, NADA is on top of it. They're participating in legislation and litigation, both in California and Florida. And we're very confident we're going to get this one shut down.
Yeah. What to other dealers listening that maybe are just starting to understand and realize this topic? What advice would you give to another dealer ahead of another auto group to should we engage in this? Should we fight it? Should we work with NADA? Should we write a letter? What do you do?
Absolutely. There are two things. I think one, we need to be in constant communication with our legislators. That's just step number one. But step number two, and I think this is an important one, if you are a franchise automobile dealer and you are not actively involved in the NADA PAC, it's time to do a self-assessment, because either we're going to have a seat at the table or we're going to be on the menu. NADA PAC is what makes sure that we get into the room, we get to have those conversations to make sure situations like this don't occur.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we appreciate your thoughts on that. And with the NADA conference coming up in Vegas, will you be there, by the way? Are you going?
Absolutely. I'll be there the entire week.
Good. Well, it'll be fun to potentially meet up with you and say hi face to face. So let's go into EOS. So you've had an increase in sales this past month. You guys are winning. I would imagine part of this is the EOS process that you've engaged in. For our listening audience that's unfamiliar with it, explain what EOS is and what made you decide to engage with EOS.
So EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. If you look across a dealership or any business, we've got operating systems for literally everything we do, whether it's managing our inventory, managing repair orders, doing the accounting. But what most businesses lack is a people operating system. And at the end of the day, we sell commodity products and services. So what differentiates us, what allows us to provide those bespoke services, is the strength of our people. And EOS gives us a system for communication and meetings to make sure that we're clearly identified and aligned on our goals and objectives, and we're giving every member of our team a seat at the table so we can proactively identify issues, opportunities, barriers, anything that's standing in between where we are today and where we're going to go together. And because of that, we're always moving forward.
I think what a cool time, there's ebb and flows in our business. COVID was an odd time. What a great time to commit to a people process, kind of coming out and engaging into kind of this new norm, whatever you want to call it. How long have you been engaged with EOS, and what did the first 90 days look like for dealers looking outward in trying to implement this people operating system?
So we're about 4 years into our EOS evolution. The first 90 days is really education, trust building, and cultural and values alignment, making sure that we're able to articulate across all 165 team members who we are and what we stand for, what's acceptable and what doesn't work in our organization. Because when that becomes the foundation that we can all align on and agree to, we can stand shoulder to shoulder and work through anything together.
So what was the trigger for you 4 years ago that said, so in our auto group, Ziegler, we have Ziegler Academy. We've committed to doing a lot of internal education through LMS. We've got different leadership classes, courses. We've really leaned into people. And we get some dealer groups outside that are like, look, you're not selling cars when you're engaged in that. Like, you can't directly tie the expense of that education back to a car sold. What was the trigger for you 4 years ago to engage in this people development process without a direct tie to a car sold?
Really our journey started far before that. As a 5th generation family business, I finally became a father and I had children. And as I looked around me, I said, I need to make sure that we're creating an organization and a culture that will surround my children, if they choose and earn the opportunity to become a part of this family business, that will make them better versions of themselves. And so for years and a decade, we looked at all of the different ways that we could help define our culture, enhance our people, and grow together. And then several years ago, we came across the entrepreneurial operating system. It was like a light bulb went off. We said, that's the way we can systematize and be intentional about who we want to be and what we stand for.
That is so you have kids eventually that will be Gen 6.
Gen 6, like I said, if they choose to be and if they earn it.
What are the odds of that in automotive? I know Gen 1, they build it. Gen 2 and Gen 3 oftentimes are challenged, but Gen 6, for those dealers looking at what you've continued into the 6th generation over 100 years in business, what advice would you give to dealers looking at that? We talked succession planning last episode. It was fascinating, but you've got a great seat over 100 years.
Yeah, we've been so fortunate. It really comes down to people and anything you do and staying close to that values alignment. It's so easy to become short-term focused, particularly when we're reporting to manufacturers who talk to the public markets on a monthly basis, but to make sure that we're always balancing those short-term objectives with our long-term goals and our visions. And we just can't ever step away or sacrifice our values or our integrity in anything that we do.
Both Yoga Cars Online says Gen 6, never heard of it in automotive. Like, you've got to be one of the longest running. I can't quickly think of too many Gen 6s. So EOS is big on issues. What are the most common issues as you engaged in the process and you've gone through it that keep resurfacing in dealerships? And then how do you prevent, a game of whack-a-mole to deal with those issues, but make it part of your culture that it's overcome before it comes up?
That's right. Whack-a-mole is a great analogy for it. Really everything comes back to communication. 90% of the issues they have are either internal communication with our vendor partners, or communication with our guests. So that's exactly what EOS helps to proactively address, because we've got a system in place for holding meetings, giving our team venues to proactively reach out and identify those issues, those opportunities, those barriers, and put them in front of everybody in a department, everybody in a store, everybody in the organization. And then we can work on them together to stay ahead of them. And
so as you made this investment 4 years ago and you continue it today, are you able to somehow, do you have some sort of a quantification metric? Are you able to say, hey, CSI is higher, our net sales, our retention maybe is higher? What are the key levers that have gotten better as a result of this process?
Since we've implemented this, our employee turnover, our team member turnover is a fraction of what the industry stands for. Every single year since we've done this, we've been a member of Automotive News Top 100 Best Dealerships to Work For. And this past year, we had 4 of 5 locations that fell into that bucket. Our net promoter scores have never been higher. And I think really what speaks to it is that when our guests visit any Don Johnson Motors facility, they say that they can feel a difference. Yeah. And that's a hard one to quantify, but when you hear that consistently, you know that there's magic that's happening.
Yeah. So Josh, you're in the North Territory. To your point, negative 20 degrees below zero. Much of the U.S. this week is going to be hit by colder, chillier temperatures, certainly. In fact, I think I even heard there's parts, Tennessee and others, that are about to get hit by 2 feet of snow. How do you and your team continue to sell cars and service cars and deliver your best to your customer every day, regardless of weather and regardless of temperatures? What's your strategy there?
We do whatever we can inside, number one, but it's a team effort. It is really what it comes down to. The weather conditions that we experience in Northwest Wisconsin are atypical. Some of the biggest extremes you'll find anywhere in the US. So vehicles break, they have to be proactively maintained. And it's more important than ever that we collectively do a wonderful job interacting with our guests to understand what their specific needs are, what their travel patterns are, so that we can put them in a vehicle that's going to be able to handle that variety and travel the vast distances that we do. But it's all for one and one for all.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. I can't tell you how much respect that many generations. In fact, we're getting a ton of comments in the comments here. Paul Salzman says Don Johnson Motors is proof that franchise dealers have the long expertise to sell and service cars better than direct sales. An important understanding. I predict a Scout will learn the hard way. We talked about that actually several episodes ago. There was an experiment way back in the 90s with Ford where they actually tried to go direct with a bunch of stores in the West. And it just, there's some advantages, I suppose, in the direct model. And one of the interesting parts, I think, when you look at some of the direct to consumer, Tesla and others, they don't spend the amount of money that some of the OEMs require of bigger facilities, right? So they're more modest facilities. And I wonder if that, Scout may learn a thing or two, and that might end up being one of them. Maybe that'll transition across to Volkswagen. And our own CDG's Hannah Farmer says Blizzards are coming to Nashville. So, Josh, you've given us advice on that. How to do that. Used car acquisition is a huge topic. Because actually, you know what? The producers are telling me we're actually right here at time, so they're going to kill me if I go any. With this EOS process, just the last question, how do you define the right seat for a general manager? We've been talking a lot on the show lately. Toughest job to hire for in automotive used to be technicians. Many dealers now are saying sales managers and GMs are the toughest jobs. How do you find that right person, and how do you determine the right traits? Final question for today.
When we're looking at our team, we really ask three questions. We call it GWC. Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? Does the individual understand what's required to be successful in that role and what success looks like and the scorecard they will be held accountable to? Do they want it? Is it a role that lights a fire in their belly that water can't quench, so that Monday morning's the best part of your week versus that alarm going off and you're counting down the minutes or hours until Friday at 5 or 6? And then do they have the capacity to do it? We all have different strengths. Are they aligned with what makes them successful or what they do better than anyone else or any of their peers, aligned with the roles that are needed for that specific job? And when we bring the three of those together, it's an equation that can't be beat.
I love that point, Josh, because there are people that you would say and look at, oh, they would be a great leader. They'd be a great GM. They don't even see it themselves, but they may simply not want it. Like, it's a complicated, complex job. And if you don't have that fire to do it, you're probably not going to be great. It's not something you can go in lukewarm, Josh, right? So
not at all.
Josh Johnson, CEO of Don Johnson Auto Group, 100-year plus organization. Thanks for being on the show and sharing your perspectives on all things EOS, organization, people development, and then a little chat on the side about direct to consumer. Appreciate you being on the show, and we'll see you at NADA.
Thanks for having me. Look forward to seeing you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks. Yeah, do you want it? Like, not everybody wants it, Yuli. So
true. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Hannah Farmer, our own, says Blizzard's coming to Nashville. Grocery stores are already sold out. So if you're in the Nashville area, you're about to get hit by a couple feet of snow. I mean, buckle up. You know what? By the way, the great thing about automotive is we're going to find a way to win in any environment. And a little bit of weather creates some fun. It creates some excitement, and it creates a shifting environment where there's need. So going back to one of our best of episodes from last year, Grant Cardone, you can do that. Eager K says, don't hire a GM who sells well, but hire GMs who are great problem solvers. Eager, I agree with that. And thanks for being a longtime listener, longtime poster in the show. We got a bunch of you today. Lauren Klein, Dan C, Eager K, Yoga Cars, the entire Daily Dealer Live listening audience, plus all of you watching. For all of you watching, thanks for watching Daily Dealer Live today, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back this Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. So if this is your world, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never, ever miss a beat. And we'll see you next episode, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.